Good evening. We'll start in just a few minutes. We're just sorting out some technical stuff. Just want to thank you all for being here.
Test.
All right. Thank you everyone for your patience. Good evening. Welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for February 6th, 2025. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. The commissioners who are present for this evening's meeting are here in City Council or City Hall. We also have staff from the City Attorney and City Clerk's office, as well as the City Planning Department. If you are joining us on Zoom this evening, we can see that you are here. You may observe the meeting. However, your ability to be seen on screen and talk will be muted. During the public testimony portion of the meeting, you will be unmuted and then be able to comment. Please note that we cannot take questions until the public testimony portion. If you have a process question during the meeting, please email cityclerk@meridiancity.org and they will reply as quickly as possible. If you simply like to watch the meeting online, we encourage you to view this streaming on the city's YouTube channel. You can access it at meridiancity.org/live. With that, let's begin with the roll call. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Commissioner Rust,
Here.
Commissioner Sandoval,
Present.
Commissioner Grace,
Here.
and Vice Chair Smith.
Present. Thank you. The first item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Please note, item number 3 tonight, Jackson's Food Store, will be open for the sole purpose of continuance. So if there's anyone here tonight to testify for this application, we will not be taking public testimony on it this evening. Can I get a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, which includes 2 items. One, to approve the minutes of the January 16th, 2025 commission meeting, and 2, findings of fact, conclusions of law for street name change from North Cooper Lane to North Cooper Avenue by City of Meridian. Can I get a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. At this time, I'd like to briefly explain the public hearing process. We will open each item individually and begin with the staff report. Staff will report their findings on how the item adheres to our comprehensive plan and unified development code. After staff has made their presentation, the applicant will come forward to present their case and respond to staff comments. They will have 15 minutes to do so. After the applicant has finished, we will open the floor to public testimony. Each person will be called on only once during the public testimony period. The clerk will call the names individually of those who signed up on our website in advance to testify. You may come to the microphones in chambers or you will be unmuted on Zoom. Please state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to address the commission. If you have previously sent pictures or presentation to the meeting, it will be displayed on the screen and our clerk will run the presentation. If you have established that you are speaking on behalf of a larger group like an HOA, where others from that group will allow you to speak on their behalf, you will have up to 10 minutes. After all of those who have signed up in advance have spoken, we will invite any others who may wish to testify. If you wish to speak on the topic, you may come forward in chambers, or if on Zoom, press the raise hand button in the Zoom app. Or if you are only listening on a phone, please press *9 and wait for your name to be called. If you are listening on multiple devices, such as a computer and a phone, please be sure to mute those extra devices so we do not experience feedback and we can hear you clearly. When you are finished, if the commission does not have questions for you, you will return to your seat in chambers or be muted on Zoom and no longer have the ability to speak. And please remember, we will not call on you a second time. After all testimony has been heard, the applicant will be given another 10 minutes to come back and respond. When the applicant has finished responding to questions and concern, we will close the public hearing and the commissioners will have the opportunity to discuss and hopefully make a final decision or recommendation to City Council as needed. That being said, tonight I would like to open the public hearing for item number 3, Jackson's Food Store request for annexation, preliminary plat and conditional use permit, has asked for a continuance. May I get a motion to continue the application to the hearing date of June 5th, 2025, with a requirement to renotice due to time?
So moved. Second.
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, I would like to open the public hearing for item number 4, 965 East Ustick Road request for annexation. We'll begin with the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. First item on your agenda tonight is the annexation of the property located at 965 East Ustick Road. The site consists of 0.90 acres, currently zoned R1 in Ada County. Previous application was in front of you in 2023, but was later withdrawn as it moved forward to City Council. If you recall, that application was for annexation with the LO zoning district for the ability to develop a public education facility on the site, or private education, excuse me. The comprehensive plan designation for this site is medium density residential. In the comprehensive plan, though, there is a provision in the a statement in the comprehensive plan, I should say, that gives the City Council the discretion to allow an applicant to request an office designation on the property when the property is located on arterial with no other access and is 2 acres or less in size. In this particular case, this parcel does meet that criteria to ask for that request. So the annexation request for you this evening is to, once again, request the LO zoning on this property with council's approval on the annexation request. As part of that, as this commission knows, we typically require a development agreement with annexations of property. Because the comprehensive plan is very specific as to office uses occurring on this property, staff is recommending a provision in the DA that restricts the use of this property to professional services and health services only. So essentially, professional office or medical office. No other uses in the LO zone will be allowed to develop on this site, as presented by staff this evening. Also, with the annexation request, the applicant is required to provide a concept plan for your consideration this evening. So there is an existing 2,279 square foot home on the site that will be left intact. And the applicant's also proposing to add on an additional 8,000 square feet for approximately 10,000 square feet of office on this site. Last time this was before you, there was discussion of access from Ustick Road. This is the case. Again, no other cross access or streets are provided to this site. So the primary access is from Ustick Road, which is a principal arterial. And this site plan, concept plan does show the required landscaping and parking requirements per UDC standards. As noted in the staff report, staff is not recommending cross-access with the adjacent properties because it just would stub to the rear of somebody's lot. Also, as part of the requirement for the UDC and the zoning code per the LO zoning standards, an applicant is required to provide a 20-foot landscape buffer when LO zoning abuts a residential district. In this particular case, there is residential surrounding this property on 3 sides of it. The applicant can meet the 20-foot separation on the east boundary and then south boundary. However, on the west boundary, they cannot make that work because of the required parking that's needed and the access to Ustick. And so the applicant is requesting city council reduction of that buffer from 20 feet down to approximately 8 feet. So again, that would be city council's action when they had this application before them. Applicant also provided some renderings for you to see how the existing home would integrate with the building addition here. As you all know, this will require design review after the annexation is completed. Staff did receive written testimony from the applicant on this application. They are in agreement with the conditions or the DA provisions in the staff report. And I had a chance to look at the public record and there was no public testimony provided on this item. With that, again, staff is recommending approval with a DA with those restricted uses on the site, and staff will stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to come forward? Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Kent Mussel. My address is 3516 South Bartlett Way, Meridian, Idaho. I represent Mussel Construction. We are the developer for this project that I'll be discussing. Last year, as staff mentioned, we brought a similar version of this project before the commission in preparation for occupancy by Pathways in Education, a local charter school. The commission at that time unanimously recommended approval to city council. However, before the council could vote, the project was canceled. The key difference in our current proposal is that Pathways is no longer the intended tenant. Despite the change, our overall plan remains very similar. We intend to develop the existing home on the parcel. I want to clarify one thing on that. Our total expected size of this building is 8,000 square feet. So we won't be adding 8,000 square feet. We are seeking, as staff mentioned, we're seeking annexation into the limited office zone. And we are in agreement with the conditions put on the development agreement, or we're in agreement to enter into a development agreement with all the conditions proposed by staff. When I read the staff report, the allowed uses here with the development agreement in place will be professional services and healthcare offices. Those are the two most likely outcomes for this parcel, but I understood we also had like a social services office as an option in there as well. I don't know if you received a copy of our response to the original staff report. That's null and void. We worked that out with staff this morning and we are in total agreement about the conditions at this point.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant or staff?
Sure.
Commissioner Sandoval.
So just a quick question. Was this approved for annexation with the last application or was it stopped halfway through? What happened there?
Commissioner Sandoval, essentially what happened was it got to city council. Council wanted additional information. Applicant was happy to do that. And then eventually the school fell out and they just asked to withdraw the application.
Okay.
But never made it all the way through the process to get a council decision on it.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Grace?
I'm not sure if this is for staff or the applicant, but what's intended to be on the west side of the developed property? Is that residential or is that,
Are we talking about the parcel? Well, so there, are you talking about maybe the east side of it? Because we have another property over there, but that's going to remain residential.
well, I'm wondering what's on the side of the request for the reduced buffer? What's going to be on that side?
Oh, yeah, the adjacent subdivision is over there. There are, I don't remember how many lots exactly. Our site plan might show it. There's 3 or 4 lots.
Okay, so it's already currently residential. then.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Um. Now I think I forgot my question. Oh, I know what it was. So if there's a reduced buffer, what kind of fencing or barrier or what's gonna be there?
Sure, yeah, this slide actually shows that. So this was what we discussed in our neighborhood meeting originally. We actually only had one neighbor show up to our second neighborhood meeting. But we had a well-attended first neighborhood meeting like almost a year and a half ago. And we talked about fencing at that time, and this is what seemed to be acceptable to the neighbors in this photograph here, and that's what we plan to do.
Looks like a 6-foot metal vinyl, is that?
Yeah, with a slightly more attractive vinyl slat within the frame.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Great. Thank you. At this time, we'll take public testimony. Sorry. Madam Clerk, is there anyone signed up to testify?
Thank you. We have Gordon Bauer. Did you want to testify? No? And then is it Todd Powell?
Yeah, if you could come and then just state your name and address for the record. Oh, wait, yeah.
Oh, sorry. My name is Todd Powell. I live at 3078 Timber Falls, which is the south property behind them. The 8-foot buffer is that it was 10 behind us. Is it now going to be reduced to 8? Or is it just going to be the 8 along the west side of the property?
Brian, if you could take that.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Sir, the buffer on the south boundary will be 20 feet.
Okay.
So the west side of the boundary will have the reduced.
And then I have one more question. On the east side, they're working on another facility there. He said it was going to be residential, but they have cleared that whole field behind them. So my concern is that might be access to the back of that building as well.
I think the west side was the residential that was discussed. I think the east side, I'm not.
Well, they've purchased another building. If we're looking at that map, it'd be to the right of it.
Mm. Okay, cool. So we obviously, we are asking questions as well. What we can do is when the applicant comes back up, we can have them answer any of those questions, and make sure they're settled. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith, no one else has signed up.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to come up and speak? Great, would the applicant like to come back up?
I think it would be good for me to address Todd's questions. So it's correct. We did purchase 1001 East Ustick, which is to the east of this property. We are in the middle of basically flipping that house. We have no intention for it to be part of this development.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the applicant? All right, well, thank you very much. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, discussion.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Sandoval.
Yeah, I don't like that 8-foot, 10-inch buffer in the residential, but it already came through planning and zoning. I feel like that's kind of almost in the territory of taking, which is probably not the right term, but to use my terminology, I think that as presented, it looks fine for the intended purpose.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would just, I don't like that buffer either, but I do like the fact that the applicant talked to the property owners to the west and looking at the well, the slide was up there, but it's not. But looking at that slide, I can see why, you know, with the access to U-Stick and the parking, I can understand why. Given the kind of occupancy that the city is going to have in the DA, I'm hoping it's not going to be a big deal for the residents on the west side. So I get it.
Yeah, I think I recall this kind of being on the list of discussions when this came around last time. I remember we had some discussions, obviously, of kind of drop off drive aisle type stuff. And then I remember kind of this being kind of a bit of a thorny spot before. But I think we generally came to a pretty decent spot with that application, and it seems like it's about the same here. So I'm comfortable with it. It's not ideal, but you got to take access from somewhere, and cars got to park. So with that, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to approve file number H-2024-0063 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of February 6th, 2025.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Next, I would like to open up the hearing for item number 5, Meridian Food Bank request for rezone. We will begin with the staff report.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. Next item on the agenda is the rezone for the Meridian Food Bank. The applicant is requesting a rezone of 1.72 acres of land from the IL zoning district to the OT zoning district to bring the existing food bank into conformance for future expansions. The site is located at 616 Northwest 2nd Street. As shown on the screen, the current zoning is IL or light industrial, and the flume designation is Old Town. The subject site is among several industrial zone properties along the rail corridor near Meridian Road. The proposed use of a social service or food bank is a permitted use in the Old Town zoning, which is the zoning the applicant is requesting. The current use is non-conforming, which requires a conditional use permit for any proposed expansion. The rezone to Old Town will allow the continued use of the existing food bank, remove the non-conforming status, and eliminate the need for future conditional use permit approvals to expand the use. The Meridian Food Bank is open Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday between 12 p.m. and 4 p.m. The main reason for the rezone request is to allow for future expansion to provide additional space for the Meridian Food Bank to assemble food packs for students. The food packs allow students to have food over the weekends. The number of food packs has increased significantly since 2023, and the Meridian Food Bank no longer has sufficient room to service all the children in need of resources. The expansion will include approximately 940 square feet of space designated for the purpose of assembly and storage of these food packs. UDC 11-3B-2 allows for phased landscape improvements as cumulative expansions occur. The city will monitor these thresholds and enforce them as required. Staff is recommending approval without the requirement for a development agreement. It has not received any written testimony, and I'll stand for questions at this time.
Thank you. Would like the applicant like to come forward? Please state your name and address for the record.
Gil Green, 2512 East Garber Drive in Meridian. Yeah, it was pretty well covered in staff report, but Meridian Food Bank is an all-volunteer organization that provides food for people that need food. One side of it is a food pantry where people come and get approximately 50 to 60 pounds of food, miscellaneous food twice a month. The other thing is we provide weekend food for students in the West Ada School District. Each food pack contains 2 breakfasts, 2 lunches, 2 dinners, and 2 snacks. Couple of years ago, our director of the food pack program said that the room that they were working in could handle about 800 food packs a week. In December, the lowest weekly total was 885. In January, the lowest total was 878. The highest was 960. We've looked around for how to expand, and there is about a 15.5-foot open space between what used to be a house, is now storage for that program, and our main building. We wanted to fill that in. And so we started the process, and we were told we were non-compliant with the existing zoning and the change to Old Town would help us smooth that process out. So therefore we applied for the zoning change. It came back that when we understand part of it is that our parking lot needs to be restriped and parking blocks in. We tried to get on the schedule for a sealing and striping our parking lot last fall, and we're told we were too late. They didn't have time. So we're on the calendar for spring anyway. And I think all of our entry ramps are at least 5 feet wide. There is one that is in the back of the building where we unload the trucks, and I plan to change that one to a concrete ramp so we can make it 5 feet wide as part of this project. We are just looking for an approval.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the applicant or staff? All right, thank you. Is there anyone signed up to speak, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Vice Chair. I have Kent Christensen. Would you like to speak? No one else has signed up.
Anyone in the room that would like to come up and speak? All right, great. If you'd like to come back forward, if the applicant would like to come back forward and anything you'd like to add.
Really can't think of anything to add. So I've told my story.
Thank you very much. Great. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I'll start with this one. Seems pretty straightforward. I don't have really any concerns here. I think it's obviously good to get things into conformance, and having people very near and dear to me who have at one point or another relied on food assistance. I'm very grateful for the work you do, and happy to see the expansion. Or maybe, I don't know, happy to see there are people doing this good work, and very supportive of the expansion. Any commissioners? Discussion? Yeah.
Yeah, this seems strictly procedural to me. This is common sense. Really to have to come here to get a small expansion where it's at anyway. Yeah, it's pretty much procedural. And yeah, what an incredible resource for the community. Really appreciative of everything you do. That's it.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Rust,
after considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend approval of file number H-2024-0065 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of February 6, 2025.
Second.
moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Very much. And then last on the agenda, I would like to open the public hearing for item number 6, Newkirk East, request for preliminary plat and development agreement modification. We'll begin with the staff report.
Good evening, Commissioners. So tonight we are here before you for a development agreement modification and a preliminary plat. This is for a site that consists of 10 acres of land, it's zone TNR. It was, there was a preliminary plat for this that was approved by City Council on April 25th, 2023. And it was 22.667 acres of land that was annexed in and zoned. The original plan included 63 building lots. 44 of those were single-family attached homes, 18 townhomes, and 1 multifamily development with 216 units. I had 8 common lots. It was supposed to be developed in 2 phases. So phase 1 has already been, the final plat has been approved and it should be recorded here shortly. Already had the city's engineer's signature and it's at the county waiting to be recorded. So what the applicant is proposing is for phase 2, Newkirk East, is to remove the multifamily and provide 95 single-family attached homes. And out of is, I think 7 of those will be townhomes with alley loaded. And there were some things that occurred with this project that there will be some issues or some waivers, but in working with the applicant, we kind of got all these things worked out. But the Kennedy lateral is on the northeast side of the property, which is not annexed into the city at this time. And there is an outlier parcel that is not contiguous to this plat. It was part of the original preliminary plat, but it is not part of it this time around. The Kennedy lateral portion is owned by the Nampa Meridian Irrigation District. And so this parcel that is bisected is owned by the developer, but it cannot be part of this plat because of the parcel, the Kennedy lateral parcel that has not been annexed. So it's not contiguous. And that is we received confirmation from the county on that. And then, although with the reduction of the number of units, the 10-mile area plan requires a target range of 12 units per acre. But the TNR requires 6 units per acre. The applicant meets the TNR requirements, but as you can see from this table, not too many of the developments around this meet that requirement. So we are okay with them having the density that they have for this development. So staff has no issues with that. Another thing that we had with this project is that a couple of the block lengths were exceeded. And we have been working with the applicant. They have found a way to reduce this to meet the maximum 500 feet length. In the TNR district, it is a maximum of 500. They would have to get an acceptance from the city council. So they will be able to meet this, the requirement on here. But this one, they will be asking for an acceptance from the city council for this one because of the terrain here. And staff did put in our staff report, condition number 3, we asked for some open space pedestrian connection through here. But based on the terrain, there are like 4 feet retaining walls along here. And then the grade difference for some of the homes that will be there, that's impossible. So staff has no issue with removing that condition because they will be asking for an acceptance from the city council. And then another thing that we had were through streets, double lot frontage. Lots 2 through 8, we have worked with the applicant on this, and they will be revising their plan to show common open space over here. So you won't have street frontage. This will be common open space, and access to these lots will be taken from this side. So that will meet our requirement for that. So the design elements for the properties within the TNR area, the applicant submitted the same designs that they did with phase 1. The city council made some acceptance to some of the standards for the design. So these plans, since the designs were previously approved with phase 1, staff has no issues with the design, and they will meet the standards that they were approved with phase 1. All the, because they are attached family homes, they have to go through design review and meet the standards of our architectural manual. They provided open space with the phase 1. The amount of open space was like 34%. They did add open space with this phase also, and added 2 amenities with this. It was a dog park with a seating area and a wait station to this, but this phase will have access to the amenities within phase 1. So the applicant has indeed exceeded their amount of open space required. And as you can see, there is plenty of pedestrian circulation throughout this application. They are asking for the modification of the development agreement to remove all the language that talked about the multifamily. Staff has no issue with that. They will be changing the language on one of the conditions. So it will be a maximum of 95 single-family units instead of 216 multifamily units. And staff is asking the commission to recommend another condition to the development agreement regarding that out parcel that's not contiguous. We're asking that that particular parcel be deed restricted as unbuildable and either be owned and maintained by the property owner, the homeowners association, or transferred to the Nampa Meridian District. We'd like to have written documentation provided to this prior to the city engineer's signature on the final plat. We did provide some revisions that will be needed on the plat before going to the city council. And we have been working with the applicant to get those revisions done. They did provide a letter responding to our staff report that was uploaded in the public portal. So they are working on those to have that ready prior to city council public hearing. And with that, I will stand for any questions that you may have.
Okay, would the applicant like to come forward?
Hey, everybody. Heath Clark, 251 East Front Street, representing the applicant. So I had call it a 6 or 7 minute presentation, and I'm going to try and make it like a 2-minute presentation because I think we're in pretty good shape here in terms of being on the same page as staff. I just kind of want to give you a little bit more background on a couple of items. So So here, this is the project. As Linda mentioned, this has a prior entitlement, but the area in general is under development. City services are all available. It's an area that's well underway. Our phase one is under construction, and what we're talking about is modifying phase two, which is the east half of the property. This goes to one of the block face items, so I think it's worth talking about for a little bit. So as sites go, it's a little bit of a complicated site. We have development on three sides, including apartments on the left, on the west and on the east. Those apartments feed our collector in, and that collector starts on the east at the bottom and works its way all the way up to the other collector on the west side. So that kind of eats up a big chunk of the project down there, and then, but that collector is already constructed and was done with the first phase. But also because it's tucked back there, it means that it doesn't have good visibility for an apartment project. And it's also got competing apartment projects on each side. So I'll talk about that in a little bit in terms of why we're asking for these changes. So as I mentioned, the collector is in, and this is the general location of it. This is the original plan. Linda already walked through all of that. I think the main thing is just that there was 216 apartment units on the east side. And the challenges that we ran into is that there's not enough visibility for an apartment project. And then it's also competing with the apartment projects that are there, that are highly amenitized. And you need a critical mass of apartment units to compete with that. And 216 just wasn't going to do it. So as a result of that, we asked to revise this to do single family. We're going to keep it at TNR. We have a mix of types with the 88 attached homes and then the 7 single family townhomes that are rear loaded that Linda mentioned. Those are here in the top left side. One of the nice things about this is that before, when we had the apartments and the single family, they basically were going to act like 2 independent subdivisions. Now they'll be combined. So the original project had the large 1 acre park. Our residents will have access to that. And then the phase 1 residents would have access to the large dog park that we're doing. Total amenity points are 14.5 when 4 are required. Total open space is 24%, 15% is required in the TNR, as you know. I know parking always seems to come up, so I wanted to give you the count of the additional on-street parking. That's the 48 spaces that would be beyond what code requires. Linda already showed you our housing examples, and those were reviewed with the first phase by the City Council. So in terms of our homework, the rear loaded access, we have updated that drawing to show the common strip that Linda mentioned. So that's already done, ready to go to council. We did provide the exhibit showing the location of the housing types. And then with regard to this block length on Wolfsburg, this is the one that we can get rid of 8 feet that we're over on that one, and that'll be done before council. This one, I did want to talk to you a little bit more, add a little bit to what Linda said about why we're going to ask for the exception on the block face here. So part of our challenge with the site is that it slopes pretty hard as you go north to south and west to east. And so as you look at this collector, the collector's already been constructed, and it's been constructed with a 4-foot retaining wall. And as you go down there, you're going to have between 8 and 10 feet difference in grade between the collector level and the pad level as you move along that roadway. So as a result, a pedestrian connection really doesn't work in that location. So that's why we're asking for the exception on the block face. So with that, I think the only thing that we would modify would be that condition A3. And again, this is something the council's got to approve, but we would ask as part of your recommendation to give us some grace on that, adding that PED connection on Milford Way or Midford Way. With that, we're otherwise in agreement with all the conditions of approval that staff has identified, including the new one dealing with the development agreement and the requirement for the triangle out piece to be deeded. And so I think that covers it. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the applicant or staff?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Can you I'm just kind of a little confused. Maybe you can provide some clarity.
Mhm.
So in our kind of staff report notes, with regard to the non-contiguous parcel, it sort of indicates that we need to annex that first? Or,
No, sorry, Commissioner Hayes.
no, go
I'm gonna
ahead.
Talk too fast. So the.
Straight.
Yeah, so this is, I think some of the confusion comes from the fact that we had an original application and now we're back doing this one. So the original application included it as property that was going to be annexed. I think the issue was staff was trying to resolve what do we do with that property now in terms of the preliminary plat. And in our investigations with the county, and I think staff's investigations have revealed the same thing, is that the county surveyor's preference is not to include it because of that triangle out piece is separated by the Nampa Meridian Irrigation District property that they own in fee there. So oftentimes Nampa Meridian has an easement, so it's not as big of a deal. But when they have fee ownership, then that does create a little bit of an issue for platting. And the other point that I would make is that the purpose of platting is to create parcels for conveyance. And that parcel is already created. It's on the outside of the Nampa Meridian Irrigation District parcel. There's really no reason to include it in a plat. It's not going to be developed. So the approach that we took was to leave it out of this new preliminary plat. It will just be out there on its own, but it's not being divided up anyway. And so, but again, we will have a development agreement provision that applies to that triangle parcel, even though it's outside of the plat, that requires us to make sure that it gets deeded appropriately and taken care of.
Okay, yeah, and that was Mr. Chair, that was my follow-up, is
Yep.
that you're agreeable to that?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that was my question. Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions for the applicant or staff? I do have one question. Sounds like it's a yes, but I know there was some discussion near the beginning of or just prior to the beginning of the hearing. You've discussed the updated deed and the deed restriction and then the ownership maintaining potential transfer to NMID if they, okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we're in agreement with, I think it was the red language on staff's slide, and that would have a new DA provision that requires that transfer of the triangle parcel, and we are in agreement.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to double check. Thank you.
Yep.
We'll move on to public testimony.
Thanks, everyone.
Madam Clerk, is there anyone signed up?
Thank you, Vice Chair. No one has signed up.
Do we have anyone on Zoom or anyone in the room who would like to testify? No? Great. Would the applicant like to come back up at all? Awesome. Great. So with that, I will take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Great. Discussion. Commissioners.
Mr. Chairman. Sorry.
No, go for it.
Commissioner Grace, go for it.
Yeah, no, I'm always, not always, I should say, but I certainly favor the reduction from apartments to the single family that we're looking at now. Maybe for the record or for the benefit of the council on a couple of these points that if they were interested to know my opinion or our opinion, I guess. I'm okay with the explanation on the reduction of the block face length. Seemed reasonable to me. I have no issues with that. I was comfortable with the applicant indicating how they're gonna handle that non-contiguous parcel. The modifications to the DA, some of them made a lot of sense, given that the change from the multifamily to the family units, the bicycle rack and the off-street parking. I think that was sort of all the nuances to this, but no, it looks like a kind of a strange little piece of land there that I think this project will fit in there nicely, and it's a continuation of the original on the east side, so I support it.
Commissioner
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Rust.
Yeah, it's very rare that you see stuff going this way. Normally we're talking about upzoning, but coming down, it does make a lot of sense. Visibility is so important for apartment communities, and the way that this is sandwiched between, as I was doing my homework ahead of time, I was like, I think that's probably why that's happening. It was confirmed during testimony. I agree with the conditions. I also agree with the applicant's request to delete A3. I think that degree of grade difference is going to make it pretty challenging. A lot of the folks that are going to end up in these homes are going to be older. There's going to be some ADA issues potentially in navigating that grade. And so I would agree with the applicant's request to delete a condition A3.
Mr. Sandoval.
Mr. Chair. After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend approval, file number H 2024-0043, as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of February 6, 2025, with the following addition to the development agreement. The parcel S121034680 in the northeast corner of the development, north of Kennedy Lateral, shall be deed restricted as unbuildable and shall be either owned and maintained by the property owner, homeowners association, or transferred to the Nampa Meridian Irrigation District. Written documentation shall be provided prior to the city engineer's signature on the final plat.
Second.
I have a motion second for discussion. I know there was a request for the deletion of condition A3. I wanted to see if that was an intention of the motion that we missed, or if you didn't want to delete that.
We can include it, or Russ, you can modify it.
If the second stands, I think is that all we need, just for the second to agree?
I think if the maker of the motion is, if you're receptive to that idea, I would probably suggest that you amend your motion and have the second concur.
Mr. Chair, I amend the motion and add second comment,
Deletion of.
deletion of A3.
Is the second?
I'll second as amended.
Awesome. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, great, motion carries. With that, I will take one more motion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.